Hello, my name is Jeanna Wearing, and I work in the Music and Arts Ministry here at First United Methodist Church. And today, I would like to say a few words about donkeys. Yes, donkeys, really. And share with you the beautiful legend of the Jerusalem donkey. But first of all, do you know how many times donkeys are mentioned in the Bible? Well, according to my internet research, each of the versions mentions over 100 times references to donkeys and their service to mankind. 142 references to the donkey in the International Version, donkey references in the New American Standard, about 140, and the New Living Translation version has 147 references to donkeys. Donkeys are portrayed in biblical works as symbols of service, humility, peace, and suffering. At the time of Jesus' birth, we're told that the Virgin Mary, expecting her child, rode a donkey to Bethlehem when Joseph and Mary went to be counted in the census. And then a donkey was used to take the Holy Family to Egypt to escape Herod's wrath and the slaughter of the innocents, and then bring the family back to Israel when it was safe to return. Donkeys are also associated with the theme of wisdom in the Old Testament, the story of Balaam's jackass. And a donkey is featured through the story of Jesus when he rode into Jerusalem. In biblical times, donkeys were a very familiar sight. In Old Testament times, before the horse became regularly a mode of transportation, riding a donkey or a mule was a common form of how you got from one place to another. When laws were spelled out by God concerning the treatment of animals, donkeys were specifically mentioned in those instructions and how you were to care for them. Donkeys are included in the last of the 10 Commandments among examples of the neighbor's property that you should never covet. Never desire to take your neighbor's household away from him. Never desire to take your neighbor's wife, his slaves, his ox, his donkey, or anything else that belongs to him. Donkeys were also itemized in wealth portfolios in the ancient world and were symbolic of material blessings. Among Job's original holdings were 500 donkeys. And when Abraham's wealth is described in Genesis, well, donkeys are a featured item. One of Samson's great victories over the Philistines involved Samson using the jawbone of an ass. And sometimes the Bible would perform marvelous works through the wisdom of donkeys. Yes, Balaam as a faithful donkey, and the donkey that Jesus rode into Jerusalem. If Jesus had arrived into Jerusalem on the back of a magnificent steed or a fancy horse-drawn chariot, there would have been a very different message, but instead he rode on the back of a donkey. Jesus chose that donkey because it was a symbol of humility and service. But in accordance with the symbology of the time, the riding of a donkey was also a sign of royalty. From the archives dug up in the Babylonian city of Mari, it was learned that the riding of a donkey for entry into a city was an act of kingship, of a royal personage. As both Matthew and John point out, Jesus' actions were actually a sign that fulfilled the prophecy of Zechariah. Rejoice with all your heart, people of Zion. Shout in triumph, people of Jerusalem. Look, your king is coming to you. He is righteous and victorious. He is humble, and he rides on the back of a donkey. Now, people think donkeys are stupid. No, they are not. In fact, once their owner gains a donkey's trust, then that animal becomes willing and a companionable partner and very dependable. They work best when they trust their owners. Once they feel comfortable, well, then donkeys will do almost anything the owner wants, within limits, however. Donkeys are very intelligent, and if they sense danger, or if they sense a problem, they will rear back and they won't go. It's not because they're stubborn, it's because they're smart. They sense that there's a problem. They're sure-footed, they have excellent eyesight, and they navigate rocky terrain and find paths that the human eye might not be able to see. Well, don't think that a donkey is stubborn. No, he's not. He's just sometimes smarter than his owner. Donkeys today come in all shapes and sizes and colors and coat texture. There's even a pure white donkey. In point of fact, the Jerusalem donkey is different from your everyday donkey. Very, very different. A Jerusalem donkey is sort of brownish gray, but if you look closely, all Jerusalem donkeys have a cross, a dark cross across the back, running down from the bottom of their neck to their tail and then across their shoulders. Now, how did the Jerusalem donkey receive such special markings? Well, thereby hangs a tale, if you'll pardon the pun. The legend of the Jerusalem donkey is such that once upon a time, there was a poor farmer near Jerusalem who owned a donkey very, very small and quite slight, and he wasn't thought to be able to do much work. So at the supper table, the farmer announced he was just going to either kill the donkey or give it away. Now the children, who loved the donkey, begged their father, "Oh, please don't do that. Sell it rather than harm it." Then the oldest daughter said, "Father, tie the donkey to a tree on the road near the town and say, 'Free to whomever wants it. Take it for nothing.'" So the next morning, the farmer did exactly that. Soon, two men approached him and asked if they could have the donkey. "Well, it's not very good for anything. It can carry almost nothing." "Well, Jesus of Nazareth has need of this beast," one of the men said. Well, the farmer couldn't imagine what a great teacher like Jesus of Nazareth would need with such a worthless donkey, but he said, "All right, take it." The men took the animal to Jesus, who stroked the face of the grateful donkey, and then Jesus mounted the gentle creature and rode away. And so it was, on the day that we call Palm Sunday, Jesus led his followers into the city of Jerusalem, riding on the back of a small, common donkey. Don't you wonder, did that donkey witness the scourging of Christ, the placing of the crown of thorns on his head? And did the donkey hear Peter's denial that he was ever an apostle of Jesus? The donkey so loved his gentle master that later he followed Christ to Calvary. And the donkey, seeing the sad treatment of Jesus, wished that he'd been able to help carry the cross. After all, it's a donkey's job to carry man's burdens. The donkey could not bear to watch the suffering of Christ and turned away, but in his concern, he turned back and stayed nearby as Jesus endured his torture. The donkey stood at the foot of the cross. And God saw this and caused the shadow of the cross to fall across the little donkey's back. And ever since that day, that donkey, the Jerusalem donkey, has carried the sign of the cross as a symbol of God's love. So, the next time you see a donkey, give your little friend a few carrots and an extra scratch or two and a pat on the head, and remember the burdens their ancestors have carried for thousands of years on behalf of mankind, and the lovely legend of the Jerusalem donkey.